I'm in the worst pain I've ever been in my entire life. She has the audacity to put her hand on my shoulder and say, hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Philibong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Nalyn. She's the co-founder of UMass Altitude, which is a dance performance team at UMass Amherst. She's a biochem major turned dancer and choreographer. I feel like there was always a time where dance has played a huge role in her life. Me and Nalyn met in a very interesting way, which we'll get into later on. But our friendship has grown tremendously, and I'll give her the patent and coined the term the Randy Shot. She is like a sister to me, as we are two honorary members of the Dark Skin fam. Currently now she is working at Firebeat with her brother Charlie, who was a past guest. So let's welcome Nalyn. Hey.
I'm trying not to laugh through that
intro.
whole intro. I was like, what is this dude gonna say about me?
I was trying to like conjure up what to say, and I'm like, I don't think that's good. I think I can run it. I was gonna go like the whole like step up movie kind of thing, and I was like, I did that for Charlie. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
But how are you doing? How is your mental health nowadays?
Nowadays, honestly, like, I think I've said this in like previous combos, but like I'm like the happiest I've been like ever. I just turned 30, and just like being super excited about like what's to come, because I feel like the 30s are what the 20s were marketed to us as. So the 20s were like filled with a lot of like soul searching and like, really uncovering like identity in order to like find alignment. And so I feel like super aligned in kind of the like communities that I'm in and career wise, and my partnership with Vitata.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like internally I feel really good.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. I know your journey has been like up and down, like figuring it out. And obviously we get into like how like your 20s were, because I feel like the audience would really like to get advice of like how to navigate their 20s as they continue on in their journey. But before we get into anything, I want to feature the Funko Pop of the episode, and that is Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's because you told me that you're from the quizzes that you took, the Water Tribe is the one that you resonate with. I'm just curious as to what from that quiz gave you the answer that you would be part of the Water Tribe.
I think in like a lot of different ways, just like I resonate with water, one also being that I'm a Scorpio, which is a water sign. With water, it's like the fluidity / adaptability, and even in a lot of like roles in my life, I feel like I'm someone who like fills in a lot of the gaps, which water can just like seep into all the crevices and stuff. I love waving, and like whenever it's like improv or even in my choreography lately, there's been a lot more like gooey, melty, fluid motions. The alignment in my life and in my soul and in my mental, I think it's so crazy just to see it like manifest itself like literally physically.
So. What was it like growing up with your background?
Like, where do you start?
True.
Who was it? I think it was Kyle who had brought up the idea of like when you first log in, like when is that moment? And I'm like, I think it had to be in around like 3 or 4. I remember like learning how to read really early on. If I remember it correctly, my mom was taking like night English classes before I was in school. So then she was like teaching me how to read as well. So I felt like a way for both of us, when I think back, both of us to like practice. But that also was like really tough, because I remember crying because I couldn't read the word because at that point I was just like reading the same books and like sight reading words and stuff. So I'm traumatized by the word because.
Dang, jeez. You don't sing the song just to like get your like enunciations out.
What song?
It's like BECAUSC. No? Uh-oh, maybe that's... Well, I just embarrassed myself. Anyways, you were saying?
I'm like, maybe that came up with your generation.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're not even that much, that many years apart, but
Yeah.
yeah, no. And then I'm one of 4 siblings. My parents immigrated here. They're refugees from the Khmer Rouge that happened, but it was like late 70s, early 80s. They came to the US. If you watched Charlie's episode, my older brother, he's the oldest, and then we have one other brother between us, and then there's me, and then I have a younger sister.
Who looks legit almost like Nalyn. It's crazy. Like I went to... I gotta tell the story because this is crazy. Because I went to Egg Roll Cafe in Lowell, and I was like on a double date, and I'm like looking back. I just looked back to the kitchen, and I'm like, when did Nalyn start working here? And then I just like kept looking over and over again, and guess what? It wasn't her, bro. I literally texted her. I was like, yo, do you work at Egg Roll Cafe now? And she's like, what are you talking about? And then her sister tells her that someone was looking at her then for a lot of times. And it turns out to be her sister. It looks almost exactly like her. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what?
We're 3 years apart.
Yeah.
We get that a lot. And our names are also similar.
Yeah.
And then her nickname is Nal, which is the first 3 letters of my name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I came first, so now I can't even use that.
This is my title. This is mine.
Going back to like reading and stuff, that's how I spent most of my time. It was that, and for context, my dad was like a teacher or tutor for a lot of my students in like elementary school and high school and stuff. So we had a lot of textbooks at the house. So I would also grab math books and grammar books and just do the exercises. And
Oh, dang.
You're
You're a good child for doing that. I'm like, nah.
Your face is just like...
Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, Botanic gives me the same face too. He was like, oh, you were a nerd.
Yeah.
You were a nerd. And I'm like...
You're like, well, that was the only thing that you had to do.
And then, yeah, I would get in trouble a lot because my sister would want to like play Barbies and stuff. I would rather just sit and read and do math problems by myself. So that caused a lot of like tension. Other than that, we like spent a lot of time outdoors playing like badminton, riding our bikes and stuff. Like our parents would like pack up all of our bikes into the van, and then we'd like go to a local park and be able to like ride the little trails or, you know, going to the playground and stuff. It makes sense to me that I ended up dancing. And the way that I view choreo and art and some of the things that I want to do now and incorporating more storytelling and things. The first Harry Potter movie came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
It was either like on my birthday, November 17th, or like around there. And I remember wanting to go watch it. I'd never gone to the movies at that point. And my parents are like, you can go if you read the book.
Oh.
So as a first grader, I was reading the first Harry Potter book.
That's crazy.
At the same time as my first grade teacher. And we would like talk about it and stuff. So I was like I was a little nerd.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with it, but damn. But you do make a good point about how storytelling is such like that incorporates in your dance, because that's something you've always harped on. The things I've learned from you is that storytelling aspect when it comes to choreo. Like you always made sure like this is how you want it to be pictured, and how you describe it. It's always like there's a story to it. Because Charlie mentioned that with your dad being like a tutor and all that stuff, he had to uphold this kind of image of like, you know, of I'm, you know, this person's son. Like, so I have to be very studious and good and all that stuff. Did you feel like you had to do the same, or did it just come natural because of reading and stuff like that?
I don't think I had to bear that weight the same way that Charlie did, especially Charlie being the oldest and him being like Charlie Jr. It makes sense that there is that sort of expectation for him. By the time I came around, I was the third, but also I'm the eldest daughter. So that adds another layer of
for sure
chaos. Across the board was like a high performing academic student anyways. So I was like, again, naturally a nerd. So it's funny because all the teachers are like, you guys aren't the parents that we need to see at these meetings because your kids are doing fine. And he's like, on the next report card, this is my dad, can you put like the percentage that she has in the class. They're all A's. And he's like, I just want to see the percentage. And so he's seeing like 97, 98. He's like, almost isn't good enough. And I'm like, oh, trauma. So that was tough. But I never felt like the comparison to the others or the pressure for that. I got to do a lot of things that my siblings didn't get to do, or at least my older brothers. Like, they got to play a lot of sports. I really liked sports, but my mom, I think, took me out pretty young because it's a boys thing. I'm like, oh, okay. But then I ended up doing like Khmer traditional dancing for a couple years. So that was like my true introduction into dance. And then at the same time I was doing that, like a few years earlier, I played violin, and then
Did not know that.
And then I did musical theater for like 3 years in middle school. Again, I think it makes sense that I ended up wanting to and being drawn more into like the arts because I was exposed to it like pretty early on. And then like I just remember my sister, like, there's only so much space in our room, and she's sitting like on the bed and the TV's across the room, and I'm just dancing in the middle, and she's like, move, you suck. I'm like, ouch.
Younger siblings will always humble the older siblings.
But it's okay. She came to one of our showcases like recently and was like, you're pretty good.
You're like, yes, the final approval I've been waiting for. Yeah, you traumatized me. The only reason why I work so hard is to prove you wrong.
Oh, man. But it did make me emotional when she said that, because I was like, yeah, I have that memory in my head of like her just being like, you suck. Yeah. Just because she wants to watch the TV, which is fair.
Yeah,
fair
enough. But like, I suck it.
Oh man. Yeah, so I just started like improvising a lot in my room, and yeah, Mike's song from Cabo Modern just lives in my brain. I'm like, oh my god. So then when I got to meet him in college,
I know. Oh, he was starstruck, freaking out.
He signed my my Kinshas jacket. He witnessed me peeing off the stage metaphorically.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute. No. For anyone that's not watching the video, it is metaphorically.
Oh my god. I think the clip still lives on the internet. I think VSA has it somewhere. So if you have their permission to insert said clip of me just... My mom used to record like MTV and VH1 like music videos on these VHSs for me. And so those are like things that I would also watch like super often. So things like Christina Aguilera's like Genie in a Bottle was on there. Backstreet Boys, lots of Backstreet Boys on there. There were some New Kids on the Block. So lots of like 90s, early 2000s like pop, which had like dance videos and stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. So maybe back then I was like dancing, trying to like also emulate. And that was probably when I was like 5 or 6, maybe 7. I didn't watch a lot of TV because we also didn't have like the full cable.
Yep.
Either. So then it's like, oh, I just watched this cassette over and over again. So then I would always listen to their music, and then like we had a boombox, and my parents would buy me like the CDs, Britney Spears, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. So I'd like have the headphones plugged in, and then I'd just be sitting there either listening right in front of it or like writing down the lyrics and stuff. Yeah, to this day I'm like, I'm gonna do a late 90s 2000s pop set because now I can dance. I can do it. And then I just started freestyling a little bit more, but the reason I actually started dancing and joined my first team was because of 2 of my really good friends in high school. I went to a private high school for a couple of years, and I used to just like freestyle in the art room while my friends were like doing homework and stuff. And they were like, oh my god, you're so cool. I was like, none of them like danced either. I was like, oh, I'm just doing I'm just whatever. And then my friend, and I will drop these names, Andrea and Wes, they signed me up for an auditioning for like a culture show, and then I auditioned, and then I got into the show, and then after I performed, the captain of the dance team was like, you need to audition next year.
So I guess why did you have to go to private? Not have to, but why were you put in private school in that transition?
I ended up in private school because I was stumbled upon by also another name drop, Howard. He ran YDO, Youth Development Organization in Lawrence, which is like an extracurricular after school program that was separate from our school system.
Okay.
So he was recruiting kids, the good kids.
Nerd.
And and so I ended up doing like one program with them when I was in 8th grade. I applied to 2. Yeah, I got in full ride to 1. And then, yeah, I was surprised. I ended up going for a couple years. Highlighted was just the idea of like privilege. I came from, a background, underserved public schools, minority population, not a lot of white folk. And then literally in the town right next to you, you're driving down the same road. In this affluent community, there's this other school.
Mm-hmm.
A majority, like lots of like legacy students and stuff, and super smart, like super talented. Created this like little bubble, and like in the first year, we usually do community service project as a grade. Go to my hometown and serve in a soup kitchen.
Mm.
And so they showed us like a documentary about it, and it was really just like rough to see in the first 6 months of being there, of like, oh, this is how people see us. Like, I grew up in this community, that was my reality. And then just to see again the level of privilege that people have. The resources at the school were crazy, and like, again, I'm super grateful for that. But it's like being at college and you're 14, and so you're forced to grow up like super quickly. I also still struggled in college.
Mm-hmm.
So then being like 13, 14, 15, living on campus and stuff. Like, I never lived on campus, but just that idea of constantly being surrounded and feeling like I needed to like assimilate as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other Khmer girl, who actually is one of my really good friends. So yeah, it all does kind of feel like a blur at this point because of like what the worst times were.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I'd ever gotten like Fs, a high achieving student, and like in the world that I was in, and then to come into a world and be like, you're average, if not below average. And I'm like, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But there I actually met my only group of female friends that to this day, like, we're still friends. And we went to one of our friends' weddings in September. We're going to another one in January.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's the only true sisterhood I've ever had. And like, we all met when we were like 14, 15.
Yeah.
They're the main reason why like I wouldn't change it. That, and it really started my path of dance and like continuing it. I didn't think I was going to dance when I was at that school.
Mm-hmm.
Until again, Andrea and Wes signed me up for this show. And then Charlie got to actually come see the show.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I also didn't know that he was dancing. So when he hit his dance journey and my dance journey were like parallel, but we didn't know until probably I was like, he came to my show, and then like, I think I was like 17 at that point, which means Charlie was like 22.
Mm-hmm.
He was in college. And so like, we weren't friends.
Yeah.
Especially in the same way. Like, now I'm like, Charlie's like one of my best friends. I don't know if I've ever told him that. That's implied, but like,
it's there.
Yeah. Some of my friends from YDO, which I mentioned earlier with Howard, we're starting a summer program, and then Howard is like, you should teach dance. And I'm like,
you teach him like a 2-step?
Back then I didn't even have that kind of knowledge. Like, I think I was like choreographing, but also I was also super into K-pop around that time. So I was also like, I think I taught a cover to BTS's Bulletproof.
Wait, you were teaching that to elementary kids?
Yeah.
Oh.
We didn't get very far.
Okay.
But it also like makes me like, I'm like, oh, all my worlds colliding and like K-pop. And like I was into K-pop, but I wasn't into learning their dances or anything.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't doing covers and stuff necessarily at that time. But my other brother listened to K-pop and we watched the videos on YouTube, and it was when you would like torrent stuff, and like I started teaching myself Korean.
Yeah, you went through that phase, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I like forgot about that. And then like I was learning Spanish in high school, like for classes where it was
Mhm.
like super immersive. And then I took Japanese in college. I know I'm skipping around, but I was like, languages and communication are like huge for me. And like I think it's all also tied in with like understanding people
Mm.
and connecting with people. And so if language I love, food I love, and like just the idea of culture, and then that also goes to like dance and understanding dance culture and the importance of that, and then like communicating without words, and like so verbal, nonverbal, communications, it all like kind of ties together. And I think it's like the high school period is I think when I started to focus on connecting with people more. I don't think that was something that was in my purpose or what I understood of myself in the world at the age of like 15 or whatever.
I mean, how could it
Um
even?
but yeah, as I was like getting old, like approaching college, I was like I had started to find things that connected me to more people. In that time, YDO comes back into the picture because Yoshi comes back into the picture, and I really need to shout out Yoshi and give them their flowers because they are like the single most like talented dancer from our hometown / that I've ever danced with, and like just bright human. So if they're ever here and they want to hop on this podcast,
There you go.
because I know you're listening to this, Yoshi. That brings me closer to like when we start to.
Oh,
You're gonna come into this
man.
picture soon enough because I left YDO, the summer program, which allowed me to spend more time focusing on stuff in college.
Okay. So you're doing YDO at the same time that you were in college?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't remember which summer it was. That was my last summer, but I didn't think I was gonna dance in college. Didn't even look for a dance club.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was going to college with my then boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of our friends were also going / transferring in and stuff. So I had like my community. So I wasn't like seeking anything, and I was like, I'm like, dance.
Yeah. Like, I've done it.
Like, what else is there?
Yeah.
Didn't look for a dance group, but then my roommate at the time mentioned that I danced, and she found HHCO at the club fair. I didn't even go to the club fair.
Mm-hmm.
And she came back with, they had a little business card.
Yeah.
She put it on my desk.
That's cute.
I still didn't go.
all that buildup for you not to go, okay?
I still
Why'd you
didn't.
decide not to go? Were you trying to like close a chapter on dance, so that wasn't your intention or focus at that time?
I just didn't know what else there was for me in dance. Like I didn't feel particularly like talented in it, and it's not like I was going out and taking classes. My parents were still like, yeah, they let me do a lot of extracurriculars, and I went to this private school and stuff, but outside of that, like the idea of just like going to take class and paying for anything just wasn't something that was possible.
Mm-hmm.
It was some dude in my math class.
Okay. Okay.
I'm like, I don't know if I should name drop him or not. It's nothing bad.
Yeah.
But no, he was in my math class. He was another Khmer dude who played League of Legends.
Okay.
He and I, and then my friend from high school, the other Khmer girl.
Yes.
The only other Khmer girl in the school. She was also in college with me, and so the three of us were in the same math class.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was like Calc 1 or Calc 2, but whatever.
Did I meet this girl? Or this was past my time? Like, before I even arrived?
No, she ended up transferring by the time you arrived.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were friends and we would do like math homework together and stuff. And he kind of reminded me of Charlie. And it was like, oh, I had a big brother on campus. Which is like really comforting.
Yeah.
And he danced.
Okay.
And I didn't find that out until later, but then I think he and Melina were trying to get me to go to take a class. So I went to one class, which is somewhere on YouTube or Facebook.
Deep in the files.
Deep.
Yeah.
Deep. This is before Altitude and 530 was a thing. I went to one class, and then I was part of the Khmer Student Association.
There was
one.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
There was one. I was doing that, and I was either on e-board or I was like just super more involved. I was tabling at an event, which is probably like a VSA or event or something. But
yeah.
Regardless, HHCO performed.
Yeah.
And then they were just like dancing on stage, battling. And I don't know what in the universe called me, but my ass got up there.
Oh wait, what? Just like
I don't know. I came back and I'm like, why did I do this? I don't know if like that was on there or I don't know. But I went up there and I freestyled, and that's where I met Jeffy.
Yeah.
Who is like, if you think I'm grandma of the crew, like
she's the one before you. Yeah.
She's the one who brought me into everything. Again, I don't know what called me to go up on that stage. Like I was on the side,
just watching
behind my booth, and I just
you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna go up there.
Yep.
Wow.
And then that was like the end of the year, and then I came back in the fall, and then I started doing stuff with HHCO somehow.
Yeah.
This was back when they were like, when my first performance with them, there were 5 of us on stage. Our team was like 5 people, 6 if you included like the one b-boy that danced with us sometimes. The b-boy squad was like running strong. There. They were there first. They're the ones who started the club. They were like the most consistent. They sessioned. There was a lot more. There was some like separation, but again, the club was so small.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of winging it back then.
I mean, you were also balancing school too.
Yeah, all while being a biochemistry major. Well, also like I think it was a biochemistry major, and then I also was taking Japanese. I was gonna do a Japanese minor.
Dang, okay.
Didn't finish that. And then I was gonna do I think it was like education minor. Didn't finish that. Sociology minor. Didn't finish that.
Dang.
Yeah, I just like couldn't decide, and I think that was also like me. It was just like the idea of like, at that point in my life, like not knowing what I wanted. And the only reason I was a biochemistry major was because my grandma at some point, I thought my parents, but my grandma for sure was like, you should be a pharmacist.
Yeah.
In first grade, when everyone's like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
And like, you wrote a pharmacist? Wow. Okay. Yeah. I feel like you were probably one of many that said pharmacist.
Yep. They're like, you mean like a farmer? Like, you know what a pharmacist is? Like, yeah, they stand like at the CVS and the counter and they give the medicine. Oh
my God. You were a first grader saying all that stuff. That's crazy.
I was a nerd.
This is what started all. It was the pharmacist. Journey to be a pharmacist.
Yeah, that's why I was a biochem major. I was going to go to pharmacy school. I applied for MCP, but then something about my dad was kind of like, oh, you don't want to be like 100% like what if you change your mind, which was interesting because I only remember my dad saying that once, and it was like, you should do something like biochemistry so that like you have options like research or if you want to go whatever. And I was like, okay. And all the times that I could have switched my major and should have switched my major, I didn't. And then I tried to like work around it by trying all these minors and stuff, but they just didn't work with my major because it was just so intensive / the labs are so long and stuff. But I also spent 5 years at UMass. So that's one of the consequences of that. Right. But that also meant that I had more time dancing with HHCO. Yeah. So it was like, well, I guess that was meant to
It
be.
just had to be the you getting up on stage, staying for that long. Makes
Yeah.
sense. If I guess what was there any fear in changing your major? Just like because I know like you were like trying to work around it, but what about the option of just straight up like just changing the whole major?
I just didn't think it was an option.
Mm,
I
fair.
didn't think like quitting was an option. By the time I was like, maybe I should switch, it was just, you're just too deep anyways. So
Yeah.
it's like,
It's still so crazy is that they expect us as 18-year-olds to know what we're gonna do for the rest of our life and not have that ability to like shift and change. And on top of that, it's like
yeah.
money too, right? If you change and you stay longer, there's that whole thing about it. And I don't know, I have my own thoughts about it. But
Yeah.
one thing I did want to ask about kind of this whole aspect of like fitting in, because I know you said in private school like there's only other one Khmer girl. I'm not sure how the dynamic was in your public high school, but did that affect your mental health at
Mm.
all, or was it just not something you really thought about?
I think the idea of like fitting in, and I think I talked about the idea of like identity was something that I've struggled with probably even till today, I would say. I feel most aligned with it now, which is why I feel like I'm on the cusp of really living. When like growing up, Khmer, there's a decent sized Khmer population in my hometown, but it's predominantly Hispanic, like Puerto Rican, Dominican mainly. Um, so being the one, I was actually the one Asian person in my grade
Oh, really?
for almost my entire elementary, middle school career. So I fell into the stereotype of like, oh, she's smart because she's Asian. No, I don't want to fight her because she knows karate.
Oh,
Um,
geez. Okay.
Generally though, like well liked.
Mm,
I never felt like I was like necessarily picked on. I hung out with the boys a lot. And so like when I think back, I'm like, was I a part of these groups or did I do these things because I really loved them or was it because I was trying to like fit
yeah,
in?
mm,
Going to private school and like being around a lot of really smart, affluent white folk. I'm like, the way I spoke definitely changed. It was it was like a confusing time. I mentioned I was super into like K-pop too, so I actually joined. There's no Khmer club because there's two of us.
mm,
I joined the Korean culture club,
mm,
and like then got invited to be like on e-board and stuff. And that was a nightmare in the sense of like I'd never dealt with I think there was just one instance where we were running like an event and then one of my friends who is Korean American, she had heard some girls saying stuff in Korean. And then that was like the last time I showed face there. All I was doing was like organizing like gatherings for people to come to and it just felt very like alienating. Through all of that, I can't say like I felt like I belonged in a lot of the places that I was in. Like I was, I don't know, the only one in this group of like, I was the only girl in this group of dudes. And I was like having a lot of, why is it that I like don't vibe with girls
mm,
back then?
mm,
And it's like, is something wrong with me? With the idea and the concept of like water
yeah.
and being a people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
it feels very it does make sense that I was in the circles that I was in that I just like again, you can like mold yourself to kind of like be whatever that is spaces you're in. And then like reflecting back, it's like now it's like I guess it's like nature versus nurture.
Mm-hmm.
How much of me was just molding to other people, which is why I have become the person that I am. And like peeling back the layers to really find like what is authentic to me. And so it's like I feel like especially in conversations around like culture and social justice and equality and the complexity I feel like of like yes, I'm Asian, but I'm not like the Asian that most people think about because we're like dark-skinned Asians who come from a lot of our communities like in impoverished or underserved communities, and so it's like I know what it's like to be poor. But when people think Asian, they think East Asian, affluent scholars and things. And so having to like fight that stereotype and like sense and like it's like you belong but you don't belong. So I'm like Asian but I'm not Asian enough. That idea. And like
Yeah.
in spaces where I'm like I'm a girl but I'm not girl enough.
Mm.
So many places where I feel like it's a spectrum of identity and I fall somewhere like in the middle of like femininity and masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And so energetically I'm somewhere in the middle. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, not feeling like you belong there. I think that's caused a lot of just like confusion in myself of like, how do I also like the idea of respect. It's like trying to respect as many people and cultures and without having to over explain myself.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're, you know, if people are going to make assumptions about me and think I'm speaking out of place on certain things, it's like, no, I feel you and I understand you in certain ways. As I ramble right now, right? It's like the idea of like, I also know that I feel like I need to over explain my existence. And I feel like I also like shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
But then context is important. So then I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I go in this circle of like,
Yeah.
so whatever I said for the last like 10 minutes, I have no idea what I said.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying just because of like how what's it called? I never thought about the whole concept of like, are you Asian enough? Especially coming from being Lao too. It's like when people look at me, they're like, "Oh, are you Khmer?" I'm like, "No." Are you Filipino? I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, what are you?" And I say Lao, and they're like, "What is that?" Just like the category of Asian is not even there. Like it's kind of crazy. And then when you're talking about femininity and masculinity and where you fall, like I know some of my friends too, they're like, oh, like guys don't like me because I'm not like, I'm just a bro, you know, like, but like, and I'm just confused because like I don't feel like being like girly girl and this is who I am. But again, like going back to your concept, like I just felt like I wasn't enough. Like I had to fake to fit in. And yeah, I mean, that's how I felt in high school too. I know I'm gonna be contradictory, but like in high school, like being around other white people, like I just molded myself into like what you would think of like a whitewashed Asian. So like bro this and like, you know, thinking about talking back to my parents, which I never did, obviously. I was never ever gonna do that. Yeah, I mean, I've been called like chink before in a town like that, and it's like just because like I'm different, like you feel like you have the authority to like say stuff like that.
Yeah.
From a physical, like dating wise, stuff like that, that affected me too. Even though I did have consistent girlfriends during high school. No, I'm not a hoe. No, I wasn't a hoe. But at the end of the day, still, I felt like there was always a hesitation to even ask. Like, I think that's why I was like, oh, I'm not gonna ask that person out unless I know that they like me, because I don't want to take the chance of rejection, because I think they're what the kind of person they want is this blonde hair white guy and stuff like that. So there's always that hesitation until I found out like, oh, like they also like me. I was like, okay, cool. I can not think about that. But the fact that I did have that before anything else kind of just says being the only, first of all, Lao person, you know, at my grade, and then Asian in general. Oh, like I just don't feel enough from the first standpoint. And then you obviously bring stuff from home, and then like obviously there's a lot of that too. But I think that's what you're trying to get across, like this whole concept at a young age to understand what is good enough. I mean, obviously you brought about your dad. If it's off by not 100, then there's like, oh, why didn't you get that 3%? And then kind of like this whole identity part about femininity, masculinity, Asian enough. Yeah, I think there's a whole world that could be unpacked there. But not to get into the juicy stuff, like guys, the things that you guys always wanted to hear.
Oh man, college Randy, is that what?
Yes, college Randy. I think we gotta hear this, tell this story last night, but we have to get both your side and my side.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Because most people don't know
Don't know this story.
We're just gonna jump to like How we met?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How we
yeah, yeah,
met.
yeah, yeah.
So by this point, was this my super senior year?
Yes. Super senior year.
So literally we would not have met. Everything that you've heard up until now is irrelevant because if I didn't struggle so much, I wouldn't have done a super senior year.
Best things come out of struggles, you know? Just say, I'm sorry, but best things come out of struggles.
So it's my last year. And by this point, Five Dirty Crew has already been formed.
Yes.
Which is the choreography crew
Mhm.
for formerly HCO, now UMass Altitude.
Do you want to tell them why it's called Five Dirty Crew, by the way? Like real quick.
Real quick.
It's not even a long. It's not even a long story, just in general.
The B-boys would session at ILC in one of the buildings at 5:30, like every day. Every day, they're just rolling around on this dirty ass floor.
It was dirty, yes.
And so, lo and behold, 5 dirty. Yes.
Very well said.
That's all.
Very, very well said. There's not much to that. That's it. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the choreography crew had been founded. We were doing auditions. We usually at the club fair. Honestly, I can't remember if I was actually tabling at the time that you were there or not.
No, I don't think so. I think Austin was tabling.
Okay. That was your first exposure to HCO.
Yep, first one.
Was the table. All I remember before I had heard his side was that he had emailed us saying that he had an injury. And then something about auditions, right? And then we were like telling him, oh, like we session it probably was 5:30.
Yeah.
And so if he wants to like come through, like feel free to like meet us and stuff. And so he does come through, injury and all. And then he still comes to auditions and he does a solo and he makes a team. That's my perspective without his insight. But I was like, this man is so dedicated and he's already like reaching out. He's like super proactive. That I was like, I just energetically, I was like, can I swear on this?
Yeah, you can swear this. Yeah.
I with him. So that was really cool. That was dope. Yeah, you can tell your side.
My side is a lot longer because it happens days before that. So I went to the club fair. I'm injury free at this point. And I talked to Austin, who's like one of the main B-boys, and he's like, oh yeah, like he's like, oh, do you like break? And I was like, yeah, like, you know, I do for sure. And he's like, oh, like we also have a performance team, like if you want to do that too, but if you want to just break with us, like come through. I was like, yeah, cool. Took a flyer, went back to my dorm. So this is the day before first day of classes, and I'm a freshman. Obviously, as a freshman, I want to make sure I'm establishing myself as, you know, the very well dressed kind of dude, right? So I had this whole fit planned, and it involved khakis, but my khakis were wrinkled, and I was like, okay, I gotta iron this, right? Just like any other person that wants to look clean will do, right? So if I could, for people that are listening, if I could paint this picture, right? So imagine your dorm room, you're facing your bed. You got one of those small iron boards from like Bed Bath Body Works. So that's our portable, right? You put it on your bed, and I have an iron, and I plug that in. So I do my ironing my clothes. I'm like, cool, like I'm all set. And I don't know why, I can't tell you why I was shirtless, but I was shirtless. I don't know. I was just shirtless because I was putting stuff together. So the outlet to the iron is lower than the bed. So in order to unplug it, you actually have to lean on the bed to pull it out. And without really thinking, I put my left arm down on the iron board. Keep in mind, the iron is still hot, like super, super hot. And I put my knee on the bed. So now the surface is unstable. I was trying to unplug the iron. The iron falls on my arm, causing me to have a 3rd-degree burn. And calling the school nurse, they said it's 2nd-degree burn. All you need is just ointment. So for 72 hours, I am just letting this thing air out, breathe, whatever. And I'm running to CVS to get ointment just to put on it. 72 hours, nothing happens. I go to, at that point, I finally go to the school nurse. I'm like, hey, like, it's not getting better. They look at it. They tell me it's actually 3rd-degree burn. And I'm like, what? So I am getting treated at that point. And when obviously if you put alcohol on a very under your skin, it's gonna hurt. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. So I'm looking at the nurse, and because they're about to put the alcohol on my burn to like clean it up, and also because obviously it's been infected at this point. I ask her, "Is there a towel that I can like bite on? Because I know it's gonna hurt." And she's like, "No." Immediately puts the alcohol on, and I'm like crying. I'm in the worst pain I've ever been in my entire life. And she puts her hand, she has the audacity to put her hand on my shoulder and say, "I know it hurts, it's okay." I'm like, I don't care. Why don't you give me a towel? I see a towel right there. And I'm burnt, I'm hurting, I'm aggravating hurting. But luckily it gets to the point where it's like cooling now. They wrap it up. I'm like, fuck, I have auditions. Like, I don't know how long it was. Maybe a couple of days from that, I emailed Nalyn, or emailed the whatever email that they gave me, and was like, hey, like, I have an injury, like, I still want to audition, like, do you guys think that's cool or whatever? And I get the message back like, oh, hey, like, come meet us, like, we can talk about it or whatever. So I go, I talk to Austin, I talk to Nalyn, and she's like, I don't know what her reaction was. I was like, hey, like, so I actually have 3rd-degree burn, but I still want to audition. And I feel like she was like, oh, okay. Imagine you're a super senior staring at this freshman that's asking this absurd of a question of like, hey, I'm injured, but I still want to join whatever club. And she's like, yeah, like, if you can do it, if you feel like you can do it, if not, like, don't like push yourself.
Yeah,
like,
just do what you can. Yeah. Come through. You're still welcome.
Yeah.
Just do what you can.
So I go through audition. I do the chorus that we talked about, check by Meek Mill and like shining. And I was like, there's no way I'm making this team. Oh, sorry. So I did a solo. So I told you guys, I come from a breaking background. So obviously most of my stuff will be on, like, I'm putting my arm on the floor, hand on the floor, and I just got treated. And I'm doing monkey flips on, like, I'm basically like where I'm like flipping myself over onto this hand. I do a handstand on this plan. I did a windmill where this is the main hand and where I have to rub my body over it, right? I sacrificed myself to join this team. And I was like, there's no way I'm making it. And then luckily I get an email saying, hey, congratulations, like, you're part of the team. And I was like, yes. Yes. And you didn't know before even auditioning, I was actually thinking about transferring to UConn because I didn't have any sense of community. I didn't feel like a sense of community. I love my roommate. He was cool, but he had his friends, and I didn't want to indulge, obviously, be like, the little brother, like, hey, take me to whoever, right? The fact that I became part of this dance team has, like, obviously changed my whole college life. Like, obviously this is expanded greatly. I became president at one point. But yeah, and then that's what started me and Nalyn's relationship.
Yeah. I had no idea any of that was happening. I was just like, I meet him, I see the email, I meet him, he does, he auditions, and like, we probably have talked about this, but I was like, he wasn't the strongest dancer that auditioned.
Nope, stiff as a rock. I told you, I don't know how I made it because proactive. This is a good lesson for you guys. Be proactive in what you want, because you gotta put yourself in the best position to get there.
At the time, what I was looking for was not just like dance skill. And we weren't a super, super strong dance team at the time. Again, where it's early days of inception. Like maybe we were like just like a year old at that point. For the choreography team specifically, in terms of just like character and like nurturing a community, like, he made sense to me. He fit what I was looking for, to add to the team from a non-dance perspective.
Yeah.
And I like to say my intuition was correct.
Yeah. She literally was like, we were talking about yesterday. She's like, yep, I took him in, and guess what? He became president. What can I say? I'm just that good. And it's honestly crazy because when I think about the team now, shout out UMass Altitude and 5 Dirty, you guys are doing absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And to see it get to this point, if I tried out now in the same density of abilities that I have, probably wouldn't make the team. No, probably wouldn't make the team at all. Hell no. So I'm so glad you brought me in. And then obviously, well, there's the next part of this is because since I joined fall semester, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fall semester, I'm still in my whitewashed era. By the way, when I say whitewash, there's no disrespect to people who grew up in that kind of community. It's just, that's what I've been built up on. When I came to UMass, that's when I've actually been exposed to Asians outside of my own family. So I was like, holy shit, this is cool. But then there's that I think it's called the in-between person where you're like, again, you're not Asian enough, but you're not white enough. And it's like, that's what I had to go through to be like, oh, like, what I'm like figuring myself out. So this team gave me an opportunity to like really explore that. And I really started to be in tune with like my Asian side, my culture side and stuff like that.
I think for most as what we had learned, and usually it's after like the first performance and stuff, like where people start to finally like click more, like you've actually completed the thing that you have been working, for months to do. Because at that time we weren't performing a ton. It was literally just like maybe once a semester, maybe once or twice. The team usually like meshes more again after that first performance. So I think by that point, I don't know if that was right before or maybe after. We can look up when
that was
Black Panther came out.
Yeah.
Our friendship like really started there, but again, you had already, you're very active about like wanting to be involved, and like I'm glad that you felt like you had a space to like explore, especially when it comes to like the concept of identity and stuff. Like I didn't think about it from that aspect, I guess, of like, but I just knew that when it comes to like creating communities and nurturing spaces where people feel safe, safety is such a huge like concept for me. It's like I value feeling in spaces and people who make me feel loved, but people in spaces that make me feel safe, that's like top tier. And so I think that's also like falls into alignment with like why I do what I do now. But it started HHCO and Altitude 5 Dirty was like the first place I feel like I really got to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not always all sunshines, butterflies, and successes and stuff. Our friendship is just one of the many great things that had come out of that. And seeing where we are now is like really cool because it is one of the things that have made it like all worth it. All started with the iron. Last night was the first time I'd seen it in a really long time.
Yeah. You guys can legit see like the point of the iron and the holes of the iron. It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. And all this just to look nice.
Yeah.
For a school of like 30,000 people. Probably didn't matter. It honestly probably didn't matter.
Not the wrinkled khakis.
I know, exactly. But no, yeah, I feel like that you inviting me out, like that obviously was a huge significant to jumpstart our friendship, which is crazy.
What I recall, because one of the last things while I was there was your first choreo.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
The beginning of the Chris Brown era that is still ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys didn't know, when I choreograph, I've only choreographed Chris Brown songs. I've been trying to get out of it. I've done a Bruno Mars. I've done John Conception, who's a YouTuber, Filipino artist. You guys should really check him out. I love his stuff. Love his voice. But no matter what, it just comes back to dancing to Chris Brown.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Just the music hits differently for me, I guess. I don't know. Sorry. I've gotten better out of it, but I'm just saying. Do mix hits. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like our last college thing together. I think it was like you doing that choreo, and I just remember like you sending me like clips and asking for like not a critique slash like suggestions and stuff, because I think it was like your first choreo.
Yeah, that wasn't breaking. That was like just full on like choreography. Yep.
That's probably actually, I mean, it being my last set also is one of my most memorable. I think the build up, the break, the making of it is something that I still remember. Let's say the shirts. I can pretty vividly
see
picture
it. Yeah.
Picture it. I did another Beyonce song for that set, but
I got.
It's okay. You weren't in it.
Of course I wasn't in it. Are you kidding me?
Nan and Emily were. They were in it.
It was a remix to Mi Gente.
Yes.
I just remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a quick thing. I think that's also something that I later down the line I didn't do a lot of my own pieces. / spend a lot of time on my own pieces. I really like when I just did like scheduling for like rehearsals and stuff. I definitely put a lot of emphasis on other people's creativity / what they needed / if they had more people. Like my pieces were pretty small, and I feel like I just put my creativity at that point pretty secondary by the end of my college career. In the beginning, it was like out of necessity. I was the only one to choreograph, so I did, and then as soon as there were people who were willing to choreograph, I continued to shove my creativity up to the side.
Yeah.
So then having to rediscover that has been like post-grad like journey. But we always came back for your workshops and stuff.
Yeah,
even to this day, like we still be showing up to your workshops.
Yeah, you guys have not missed one. It's crazy. But that's a real love support right there. That's a real love support.
Yeah.
I did want to call out, because there was a time during COVID that I think we grew even stronger through like a deeper relationship. During COVID, I was checking up on people to see how they were. But when I was checking up on Nalyn, that actually turned into like a weekly call about like, I don't know, just like we just talk about like whatever like stuff we're going through, whether that's from like, you know, like dating stuff to like mental stuff. Like it was like there was always something to talk about. Maybe I think talking for hours. And then also before that, I did the Eat, Sleep, Dance, Repeat conference, and that I think it was like season 3, season 2. I'm not sure which one it was.
Season 4.
Season 4? Okay.
4? 5.
What was that? The little Boys and Girls Club? I mean, I feel like
because you did it twice, right?
Yes, I did.
So you did 4 and 5. Yeah,
okay.
You did season 4 and 5.
Okay. And she asked me to like just be part of it, like see like, you know, and really like see if I like it and do it. And it was really fun. And that's how we also got closer, just because of like obviously being around and like picking which classes that we're going to do and stuff like that. Anyways, but the conversations during COVID, I felt like, oh man, we just talked about a lot of deep, probably struggles too. But I feel like that enhanced just like the sister brotherhood of it all. I didn't want to go talking about our friendship without like talking about that, because I reflected on that recently, and I was like, that's kind of crazy, because we would talk weekly just about what's going on, and I think it was like for 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
I
can like picture your like bed and your pillows and stuff that you're like laying there.
Yeah.
That it's so, because like COVID does feel like a blur for sure. Like I remember Charlie and Justin, because we lived Charlie and I actually lived together. Justin unofficially lived with us during COVID within the first 6 months of like lockdown and stuff. Because I started dating Vitana. Okay, you already mentioned ESDR.
Yep.
The convention, which was started and founded and run and organized by Vitana. Yeah, it was something that SFC and Intermission was like, post-grad, I was like moving into, because they invited me through like Charlie and Vitana, and they were like, oh yeah, swear it's not nepotism, they say. But yeah, they brought me on, and then obviously wanting to share that community and like extend it to people from UMass. If you want to keep dancing, you love dancing, but not necessarily being like, I'm going to be a professional dancer.
Right.
wanted to bring people on. So I'm glad you came to both of those conventions. Actually, Randy got a scholarship after he came to the first one.
That was crazy. Yeah, I did not expect that at all.
And so, and at the time, Butana and I weren't tight like that. So it's like he himself recognized you for probably all the things I recognize you for, even just in those like 2 days of the convention.
Yeah.
You have this just like this energy to you, man. The vibe, you just
the proactive energy.
Yeah. But I think and I can't speak to, and maybe you could, about like the type of the person that you were then, and like whether the where in your journey of like mental health you were, because there were several years between DSDR, like joining HSCO, and then like ESDR, and continuing on that, like Eve, despite where you were on your mental health journey, like you still have this energy that people can recognize, like people who truly see you, like they see it still.
Yeah.
Despite all of everything, going on. So.
Yeah. So after freshman year, that second semester, I was trying to get over an ex. Still in the same time, my second semester. That was like my high school ex. And then I was like, all right, time for player, I guess. But I didn't know what that was. Yeah, there you go. I notorious, guys, I cannot dance well unless my hat is over my eyes where I can't see anything. If you guys are not watching, we literally put our hands literally over our eyes, and that's how like, low my hat was.
So low. Okay.
Because I had a lack of confidence of how I looked in my faces. So if it's low enough, nobody's gonna see it. Nobody's exactly gonna see it. But anyway, so during that, so spring semester happened. I don't know. I was just enjoying Five Dirty at that point, just being part of it, performing, being part of a community where I felt accepted. Going to that summer, I still had the mentality of just being a fuckboy. Didn't do much of it, but I mean, there was one time, but we're not getting into that one time. We're gonna keep that to ourselves. So when ESDR happened, I was like, I guess I saw it as a chance for me to like really explore dance and see what it was for me, and obviously get better, because I never seen a dance convention, never been part of something like that. I feel like I was like mentally okay during that time. I think I just knew with the convention I wanted to give it my all. I wanted to get out what I put in. And at this time, like, I had a really great relationship with you, had a really great relationship with Charlie, I think. And I remember going up when Charlie, bless him for driving me. I think you also came too, for driving down all the way to Connecticut just to take me and then go back up to Lowell, which is crazy. Like, I don't know who else would do that, but that was, I'm so grateful you guys did that. And I told him, I was like, even if I couldn't make it, like, you guys can just, take the money, because it's going to something great, something good, something I believe in too. That's actually one of the reasons. Well, not one of, maybe it was. I don't know why I got selected for the scholarship, but I think that was one of the reasons. But I also gave it like my all in every single class that I did.
For sure.
I was sore as fuck, that's for sure. I would complain a lot, but I got there.
second season, the second season you went to, that one got you.
Yeah.
More than the first one.
Oh my God. Oh jeez. But I think after that season, that's when like my mentality took a pretty deep hit. And I didn't contact you at that point. Yeah. I didn't tell you anything. I don't know why. I think maybe because I was just in the mix of it. That was going into my junior year. If you guys know my story, long story short is one night I told myself I was going to kill myself because I was going through events where I felt ostracized, and I felt like nobody liked me and nobody was like on my side. I had really no support. I did have one support person at that time. His name was Andrew, and he was one of the few people that actually like talked to me no matter how many times I wanted someone to talk to. Yes, I went through that. I went through depression. Actually, I did. There's a season. It was actually during COVID. A summer squad, and it was over Zoom. Crazy. I don't know how we did stuff over Zoom, but we still did it. And One assignment I remember was just take a song. You can choreograph, freestyle, do whatever you want. And I chose Don't Judge Me by Chris Brown. And I think at that time, I was still going through very hard stuff mentally because I picked that song because I mean, the title itself is like, don't judge me for, like, please don't judge me for what what I've done and stuff like that. And I don't know what your guys' reactions were, but I like knew I put a lot of heart into that freestyle just choreo because I remember like I tried to like storytell about like being chained and like trying to get away, but I couldn't. That was a hard time for me. But for Summer Squad to be there, I think it helped me kind of. There's just I always say this too. There's an aura about intermission. So you, Charlie, Watana, Justin, Kyle, that brings out this different person of myself. And I think it's the aura that you're talking about, that kind of person, because I feel comfortable, I feel safe enough to like be myself and do all these things. Like even last night, there was a lot of laughing moments, like where I just felt genuinely super happy just to be in that space. I went through some mental health things, and I didn't want to show it because I didn't want to be a burden to other people, didn't want to like project that onto anyone else. But I knew every time I stepped into our community, I was like, this is where I feel good, and I'm gonna keep writing that out. And that's why like I just kept putting my sincere all to really just have fun. I don't know how it was from your perspective, because again, like I think I communicated some stuff to you, but I didn't have a full talk through with you about the things I was struggling with at that time.
From what I remember from that summer squad, because that was the first and only time we've done virtual.
Yeah.
And the fact that we pulled that off, and it was smaller, but it was. I was talking about this with someone recently. Someone else actually brought it up. I'm gonna give myself my own flowers because I was like, relevant to what I was saying before, the idea of storytelling.
Yeah.
And it kind of being revolved around concepts of like storytelling, books, plays, whatever you want, whatever medium you want to think of it from, of like we were exploring character and setting and plot. And when it was character, is more about like your identity. Like, I mean, especially in a time where everything was standing still, like what are using it as a moment to like understand who we are and what's around us, and again uncovering the things that we're feeling, because the universe is like, y'all need to slow down. Had come up with that concept, and then the boys added onto it, and it kind of developed into this like storybook structure, which was really cool. And I was like, I take that from all my reading, you know?
Yeah. The full circle. This is telling you guys you can be a nerd, okay? It's okay to be a nerd.
The idea of like alignment, something being meant for you, and the role that dance plays in my life, because dance plays a lot of different roles for people, and for me it's been, and for a lot of people, but for me it's been so healing in a lot of the ways that I talked about, wanting to connect with other people and understand them, whether it's through language or food. And it comes from a place of like, I really wish and hope that people would understand me. So it's like projecting that idea and that influencing the way that I interact with people. Dance has been so healing because it's nonverbal communication. And it's not even like communication necessarily with other people, but also like with yourself, like whatever is coming out. And that's also why I love like improv versus choreography. Some people love choreography because it does what I think improv does for me. It's where I trust myself the most, and it's acceptance, because whatever is coming out, and that's what you're doing, and you accept it and you move through it. And it takes me out of my headspace a lot when introducing some of the exercises that we do. And you're saying like your song choice and what you were feeling and portraying and communicating through your movement. Like if it was something that was hard for you to communicate verbally, that it's an opportunity for you to do it non-verbally, because it's like historically like, oh, my throat chakra is so blocked. So I resort to movement. And even, Vatana has said, like, you're a better person when you dance.
Mm-hmm.
Like after it, it's because it's another way to process our emotions and stuff. Especially when it gets so hard to communicate, or like, you start to get flustered or talking in circles and there's not lack of clarity. And then if you start to judge yourself because there's lack of clarity, which is something that I did like 2 segments ago,
Mm-hmm.
I get to bypass all that through dance.
Mm-hmm.
To me, and like, it doesn't even matter what I remember or felt from your piece because it was about you. And obviously the aspect of it being virtual, like, it removes a degree of, closeness.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that you had like the opportunity to like process, do that. And I just urge and encourage people, like, even if you're not a dancer, like, movement, I feel like any kind of movement, it's like emotions and whatever energetic, buildup we have, like, it has to get out.
Yeah.
Somehow. And so whether it's the sound waves coming out as you're talking about it, or just the expenditure of energy in some way, I think it's so important to that sort of release. And I think like dance is just a beautiful way to do it. And again, it doesn't matter if you're like a technically speaking talented dancer. Like, the people that I enjoy watching the most is the people that I can like feel, whether it's their happiness and enjoyment. You could be the worst dancer in the world, but if you look like you're having a blast, like, I'm gonna be dancing right next to you, like, versus someone who's like, I'm gonna technically like destroy you. I'm like, that's not fun for me. Yeah.
I mean, like, I think you or someone else gave a history lesson of like where like the Cabbage Patch came from. And I think at first it was a move that like people were like, what the hell are you doing? But because there was so much confidence in it, that's like caught on. I always tell people, when people tell me like I don't dance, like I can't dance, I'm like, well, like, this is how this move like became a thing. So like if that happened, then so can you. And I feel like that's a beautiful thing. And especially with communicating with dance. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to communicate. Maybe that was my cry for help to you guys. I'm like, hey, like, I'm struggling about this, and this is why I'm going through all this. But I do want to kind of do a skip forward on, obviously you said you turned 30, big 30. Obviously this is where things start. A lot of my audience is like 25 to the 30 like range. Like, I guess any advice on navigating like post-grad life and why, like, and where that advice came from?
As someone who, like I said before, has a horrible relationship with failure, even being able to recognize that has helped me kind of let go of that idea. And it's something I'm still working on, but it's allowed me to give myself more grace. The idea of like, it's okay to start over. Like, we're meant to start over and over and over again. I think the idea of me not switching my major, it was like because I didn't think starting over was an option. And in terms of like career paths, it's like not 100% being sure of like what my career was going to look like, because I realized, like, I'm not going to go do research. I don't want to be a pharmacist. I've worked in a dental office. I've worked in an orthopedic office. I've worked in an attorney's office. And now I'm, front desk manager at a ballroom studio. But I don't think I would have gotten here if I wasn't open to the idea of trying something new and the idea of like failing forward. And I think in the moment, there were times like when I decided to leave one of my jobs that was like super toxic, that I still felt like I was failing. Yeah, you'll start over like a million times in this lifetime. And then also, if there's anything that I've learned at the ballroom studio, our clientele age range super wide, super duper wide. And this is also why I love being a part of the showcase and having Intermission perform and just having our friends see it, because it's different than all the showcases that we've done in the sense of like, it's super wholesome and it's inspiring in the way that like, it's never too late to start. Like, there are people in this studio who are dancing for the first time at the age of like 65, 70. And there are people who compete, and there are people who they just do it for fun. They're doing it for social reasons. Like, there's so many reasons that people dance and people come into our studio, and it just further emphasizes the idea that it's never too late to start and it's okay to restart. And like there's people who did, I don't know, tap and jazz all their life, and now they're coming back into dance and they're doing something completely different, which is ballroom. Alignment is just like the big word that like comes into my mind of like, as you uncover like your purpose, or like why do you really enjoy this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you really doing this thing? Why are you really with this person? It's scary because it takes a lot of like honesty. As you continue to be more honest with yourself and like trusting yourself. Sometimes it feels so easy to trust other people, but then trusting yourself, it's like it's the toughest barrier.
For sure.
But when you trust your decision and you accept it regardless of what the consequences are, because there's a gajillion timelines in this universe, and it's the idea of also like, I'm like, well, there's another timeline where I stick with that job, or there's another timeline where I don't change, so like let me be a part of the timeline and let me jump to a timeline where I make this decision. And so whether it's a career change, moving to a new place, like it's all going to be scary. And I'm someone who likes to like really just like plan everything out.
Yeah. I mean, you think of like in that way.
Yeah. But then it surprises, when I reflect with Vitana, he surprises him because he's like, you're this type of person who likes to X, Y, and Z, but then you do that one thing that makes no sense. That's like out of character, but it's the thing that has brought me most towards alignment. And so it's just truly trusting yourself. He's like, when I say like, I don't know what caused me to walk onto that stage.
Yeah.
It's like whatever divine being, anyone that's just like,
go.
You're like, stop thinking and go do it.
I feel like it's so hard, especially for people that face this fear of failure, to trust themselves because they are afraid of what can come out the next side. And I think that's something I have to work on too, is like trusting myself more in my own decisions. Because it's just like, oh, what if this happens? What if we get into the whole like what if aspect, like you said, all those timelines, at that point you're just like not doing anything, and you're not gonna know like whether that was a mistake or that wasn't a mistake. And we are, I like to harp on this a lot, but we are our own like writers of our own life. We write our own chapters and all that stuff. So you can either choose to not trust yourself and play things safe, which is, if you want to do that, that's fine. But I feel there's a beauty in trusting yourself, what your gut says, and going with that decision. Because like you said, there's that sort of alignment, and it has brought you to a much happier spot. And that's all it is just trusting ourselves, trusting our authentic self, because we know what makes us happy and what we want for our life. I mean, there's just a lot of gems in there, especially navigating how I felt recently, just like identity crisis. And I know you said you're still going through one. Advice that I've told people is like, just go out and explore, just do things, figure out what makes you happy, what doesn't. And like you said, you're going to change over and over again, because you're going to figure out new stuff about yourself that you like. Outside of that kind of piece of advice there, what else would you say for someone who's kind of navigating that like identity crisis, quarter life crisis kind of ordeal?
Mindset is everything. Like mindset shifts. Like someone said, excitement and nervousness are the same emotion. It's the same feeling. It's the same internal feeling. But depending on what your mindset is, you're gonna interpret it as excitement, or you're gonna interpret it as nervousness. Even something as small as that, or even if it's like you feel the nervousness and you're like, I'm nervous about this thing. It's like, what if we rewire that and to be like, you feel the feeling, you're like, I'm excited. Doing something, it's like being excited to do something. If you're reassociating that feeling with excitement, you're gonna just probably feel better about the decisions that you're making, as opposed to focusing on the nervousness. Identifying like the feelings within our body and like where certain types of feelings sit in your body. And I think this is something that, because of my body awareness as a dancer, it's been interesting to do. But if you're an athlete or someone who is in some way like more in tune with their body because of the nature of the things that you're doing, that it's an interesting thing to explore. Because I also know like the nervousness that sits in my chest is different than the nervousness that sits in my stomach. Anxiety sweats. I like had to smell myself real quick. I'm like, I have a little bit of like the anxiety nervousness sweats because I smell different. I think there was a study that was like control group, they were just like wore the t-shirts, and then a group that like jumped out of a helicopter or plane or something, wearing these t-shirts. And then they had a group of people like smelling the different shirts and seeing if you could like smell the difference in them. So it's like fear has a scent. I can now recognize when I am having like some nervous sweat. So I'm like, depending on the strength of the smell, I'm like, okay, I'm only a little bit nervous. Or like versus if it's purely just like I'm hot and I'm sweating.
Yeah.
It's usually my pits. And so now me and Matana can recognize each other's anxiety sweats. So if we're out and about, we're like, are you good? Are you good? Yeah. And then with the mindset shift, another thing is like just the idea of like gratitude, abundance, manifestation. I feel like these are like these ooh-woo words that people like toss around. Yeah. Maybe it's just placebo, but it's just the idea of like, if you view things from a place of abundance, not from a place of lack, your perspective changes entirely. And so I think for a long time in my career, I was like, I'm not creative. I'm not the creative person. I'm the practical, logistical, like that's where my strengths are. I'm not creative. And for the first time in my life, like in the last year or so, I'm like, maybe I am creative. I am creative. And so now I feel like I'm able to push forward in my creativity and have the confidence and trust in that just because I've been able to like stop telling myself I'm not creative. Because you build your own walls by saying I'm not this thing, I'm not that thing. Like you could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be your parents' voice that's like, you're gonna be a pharmacist. It's also I feel like a lot of the reasons that we have a lot of fear is from traumatic experiences and like parents being a huge thing, but also like if you're able to heal / strengthen the relationship with your parents and practice the grace and trust and honesty with your parents, it also opens up a whole new, you gain back a lot of autonomy by doing that. And I feel like when you explore and have more honest conversations with your parents, you start to realize that they're not grown-ups. The idea of grown-ups, like past tense, does not exist. Like we're all growing up. As we were kids, our parents were growing up as well. And we still are. And so it's like the idea of like, it was my grandma's the one who was saying, I thought it was like all my parents too, being like, you should be a pharmacist. My mom, like a few months ago, was like, I always wanted you to go into like business and like be able to like do, like you have so much more power in building a business and being creative and an entrepreneurship. Like that's what she wanted me to do. She thought, but she was like, but I thought you wanted to be a pharmacist, so I supported you to do the thing. And I was like, wow, earth shattered. Yep. Oh my God. And so I think even like that subconscious weight of that, like after we had that conversation, I was like, no, I feel even better about being in the place that I'm now and working and being in the career that I am. Not saying that I needed my parents' approval, but it was the undoing of like a traumatic just thought of like, I have to do this for them. And it's like, in reality, it's like, no. Or being the person in your parents' lives that like, you don't have to. Again, this goes as like, there are boundaries for sure. My parents need therapy, like point blank, period. Because I've healed my relationship more with my parents, that I feel so much better about the life that I'm living because I finally feel like I'm living it for me. Yeah. So that's, I wouldn't say it's a main quest, the side quest. And I'm mainly saying this for like, especially if you have like immigrant parents and things. Yeah. It's easier. I'm not saying the responsibility falls on the child whatsoever, but it's easier for us, I feel like, if we understand the concept of like our parents have traumatized us in certain ways, and so their parents have raised them in a way that have caused them to be like, we can see that. If we can recognize that, it's easier to see it as a third party, but for them to see what they've done to us, it's first person for them. So it takes a certain level of accountability that is going to be harder for them to face, where we don't necessarily have to feel responsible. If we can see from outside perspective that it's like their relationship with their parents and like that, yeah, is passing on, that, yeah, them recognizing how their relationship has affected us, is much more harder for them to digest.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. I feel like in my recent years, like getting close to family was like huge goal, and was having that conversation with my parents and just seeing them as like people versus like authority figures, which I already have like, you know, a whole issue with like fear of, and to kind of put that barrier down made me appreciate them a lot more. And, you know, conversations are still kind of tough to have in terms of like telling them about my life, but like I think that's with any, you know, any kind of situation. And you know, they don't know what to say either. I don't know what to say either. We kind of just like, oh, did you eat? Cool. Did Luca call you? Cool. Yeah. And sometimes it's just like silence, and I'm like, what do I say? I was like, what do we talk about? I was like, okay, I'll say bye now.
Yeah.
but that's way better than the conversation before, where I would pick up the phone and just be like annoyed that they're even calling me. You know what I mean? But it's a whole new profound appreciation. Like, oh, the fact that you're even calling me says a lot. I do want to give an ode to give you your flowers. It's always a nice moment to have a one-on-one conversation with you, especially like, again, you are basically like my older sister, and like just the conversations we have, and you open up this whole life for me, you know what I'm saying? Like this whole like getting in touch with my, again, I wouldn't, if I didn't join Five Dirty, like I wouldn't be open to like my Asian culture, meeting the people that I have met, still dancing. Like the fact that I'm still dancing now kind of shocks me, because without intermission, I don't think I would be doing that. Would be one of my more focuses. And yeah, I mean, every time we meet up, it's either deep or we're just having probably one of the most fun times of our lives. Laughing.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on here, having a conversation, and connecting with me as always. There's obviously so much love for you, and I couldn't owe more. Grateful, appreciate you, and there's no words for that, honestly. So thank you.
Oh. I'm not supposed to, I'm not wearing waterproof mascara. No, Randy. I mean, I've said, you know, what I've said, your energy, and just like there's just so much, like it's not even like I know it's cliche, like I don't got words. I said some words earlier, but then it's just the idea of like, again, you've added to the safety of a space that's through the high frequency emotions, low frequency emotions. Like never once has any of that affected like the way that I view our friendship and the safe space that we've continued to just hold for each other. So I know like it's the idea of like, oh, like not wanting to be a burden. And I was like, we've seen a lot of each other, and yeah, that space is still growing strong, man.
Yep, and it's gonna continue getting stronger.
Yeah.
So I want to do the kind of TV show host section part of this. And it's called Song Association. So so this is a new segment that I'm doing, just because obviously as us dancers, we love music, we listen to music. Mm-hmm. And I'm just gonna have us like name one word for each other. So I'll name a word, you have to think of a song. If you can sing it, I encourage. But if you don't want to, that's fine. We can see the old clip and see if it actually is exactly like it. I just need the actual lyric. That's have to be the song title.
Okay. So, yeah.
I will do the same.
We already talked about how the fact that I can't sing, bro.
Okay, so the word that I have for you is save.
You know how the song goes.
I know.
He's like, yeah, I'm thinking of the same one. Save Me by BTS. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. I was like trying to like get away from like BTS, but I was like, I wonder if she's gonna think of a different word. But I figured you would go and say me, which is fine. Which is fine.
I'm like trying to think if they had like a plan B. Nope. That was the one. I mean, we also just did a BTS set like 6 months ago.
I know. True.
Do I give one for you?
Yeah. Probably a Chris Brown song. I already know it.
I'm trying to stay away from a Chris Brown song.
Thank you. See, we have both tendencies that we know.
Drive.
Ooh. Oh, that's no. It's a J Park song. I can't. It's literally called Drive, and I can't figure out what the lyric it is for.
I don't know. I think I know that song.
It's I'm gonna be so mad at myself. I gotta play it now. I have to play it now.
It's gonna be bothering you.
It's gonna bother me listening to it all the time. There's also that's what I was listening to was Drive Safe, which is a Rich Brian song.
Oh, I don't know.
Like I'm just calling to drive safe. Something like that.
I definitely don't know any Rich Brian songs. Or maybe one.
Does it ring a bell?
Yeah.
And then he's like, drive. Something like that. Oh no, I can't find it, but yeah. It's that one.
I was thinking Rihanna.
Rihanna song?
Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
Been dry.
Wow. See, things will start coming back when you're like,
oh. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for willingly embarrassing yourself. But we'll get into the final big 3 questions, and these are the 3 questions that I feel like could leave a significant impact on our viewers and listeners. And the first question, I'm actually changing this one up, is if you were to sit down on a bench with a younger Nalyn, what would you say to them?
I've never actually thought about what I would say to younger me. I've done improv exercises where I'm dancing next to little me.
You suck.
Trauma. I don't think it would be as vague as just like trust yourself.
Yeah.
Cause like then I'm like, is little me gonna be like, what the fuck does that mean? But something along the lines of, yeah, I think that would just be it. Trust yourself. Could expedite. Not saying that time we're on a timeline or anything of like it needs to be done by a certain time, but in my head, I think it's like the idea of like how would I talk about failure, or like what is the foundation of my poor relationship with failure, and like how at the root of it would I be able to like steer myself like away from that idea and that feeling. So if I learned to trust myself earlier on, I think my life would look pretty different.
Yeah. No, I feel the same. I feel like if I trusted myself, just have more confidence. I don't know why I always use this example, but I never would take 2 years to tell someone how I feel about them. Would not care about how I like being perfect on the basketball court, off the basketball court. Like in being present, like not like putting so much pressure on myself to uphold something that you passed on to me. At that point, it's just like what I do with it is what I do with it. And after that, it's on them. And obviously, there's a domino effect because obviously they're doing really well.
Yeah. If there was a second thing that just came into my head, it would be like, you can enjoy things that you're not good at. Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah.
So you're throwing the musical theater in there too?
See, I was good at acting and remembering lines and stuff, and like the dancing was fine. It's the singing that was trash. But I think just anything. Like I feel like even today, like I do things just because I'm like good at them. And then that's why I fall into certain career paths and all this stuff, because I feel like, oh, I'm good at it. I should be, it makes sense that I like it. But I'm like, you can still like things that you're ass at.
Yeah.
Like, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just you enjoy it. That's all.
Yeah. You enjoy it. You just whatever. People will yuck your yum all the time. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just do it if it makes you happy. My second question is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you, and how are you doing that?
The same word comes to mind, just alignment. Yeah, it just has to do with like continuing to make decisions that serve me. And you can do that with kindness in your life. Like, not every decision is going to please everyone around you, but you also don't have to do it maliciously. What makes that easier is also surrounding yourself with people who also value being the highest versions of themselves and support you in being the highest version of yourself. Because when people have that understanding, it's easier to have conversations like this. And I think that it like catalyzes the evolution and the potential for change when we're having conversations or actively doing things that uplift each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say like they don't have anybody's help or they're trying to do it on their own. It's a very hard journey if you're gonna do that. You need people to support you and, like you said, understand you and have a core group that will always support you when things are down. It's not in our nature to be by ourselves. It's really not. If it was, I feel like there wouldn't be a lot of like married couples and all that stuff. I feel like nobody would be talking to each other.
Yeah. And support doesn't even mean like it's always going to be easy / it's like just saying yes to everything. Support is also like telling people the truth. And again, kindness being like the main thing of, and not niceness. Niceness and kindness are two very different things. Kindness is tied to like giving people grace and understanding, but also tied to, again, truth and honesty. But also knowing that like even if you give advice to someone, like if they don't take it, that's not on you. And that's okay. And that's accepting that, because it makes no sense to harbor those feelings like for someone else. And so again, having people around you who kind of understand that. And it's never perfect. Like we have emotions, we have feelings, we make judgments. And so you're never going to be surrounded by a perfect set of people ever, because no one's perfect. But the idea of like manifesting a community, manifesting people who hold similar values. On one hand, I feel like grateful and like lucky. I feel lucky that I have a lot of the people around me who have been very supportive, being like Vitana and Ching are two that come specifically to mind right now. In addition to obviously like you and Charlie, Jess, Nan. So just like certain people who are in my life in that way, like I can also like take credit. Like I've manifested them into my life because I've lived a certain life of alignment, and that there are certain people who aren't as actively in my life, and that's okay. And it's like no feelings of animosity or anything, but they're also the people that I listed are the people that I feel like I can be most honest with, and people that have been most honest with me. So
well, I'm happy to be part of that corner of that system. Got you all the way, whatever you need, but I'll be real and not be like a yes person to you. And I know that from the jump that you don't need people. You need someone that will tell you the truth. And I know I asked for you from my perspective too, and you've been real with me. There are many times that advice you've given me that I probably couldn't take, but it was the truth. It was the truth. But moving on to my last question is, if you could connect me with someone to be on this podcast that you think would be great, who would it be and why? I'm
like, you're already doing one with one of them. There's two people that come into my mind, and I've said their names as Ching and Yoshi. for two very different reasons.
Mm.
And I don't think you've gotten to connect with both of them on a deep level. Ching's relatively like new in your life. Like we danced at the showcase at the studio that she owns with Andre. She's super dope, and like just whether it's she's super grounded. I think it's nice to have someone also around us with a little more XP in their life. And that has nothing to do with age necessarily. It's mainly like they've lived a gajillion lives, and every story that I hear, it's like just shattering every reality that I thought was expected of, whether it's woman or as an Asian or, you know, as a mother. She has a lot of insight in that regard. And then Yosh is just a great time. Yosh,
She is a vibe.
yeah. And they've just like to see them. I mean, like their most recent, they're touring with and Juliet. It's like a year-long tour, so y'all should go see it. Yeah, born and raised in Massachusetts, and Yosh is also one of the main people in my life that I've like we've danced along each other for years, and to see them do their thing. And so I think they just have a lot of insight on just sharing their journey. And there's someone who has like super bright, warm energy that I think it would just be fun to see them.
Go back and forth.
Yeah. You guys also both have great laughs, so I just
My windshield wiper laugh? Is that what you said? Or my silence laugh, where just nothing comes out?
Your fake sounding laugh.
Oh, yeah. Shit, I can't do it. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's crazy because Charlie actually suggested Ching too.
Yeah.
Well, he said Ching and Andre. So
yeah. Okay. See, Andre would be hilarious because he's a wild card. I don't know what he would be like. But they're two very special people in our lives. Yosh is I don't know. They can be super deep, but super light, super just like, and just having the experience, like they're the other person that's just like the deepest in the dance industry in our lives and stuff. And they're a true artist. That's also the other thing. They are, simply put, an artist. Like the logistical, like practical, whatever, like they are the epitome of what that means. And so where I feel like I'm like somewhere in the middle, a lot of us are like somewhere in the middle, it feels like. Maybe Charlie identifies a little bit with that, and like Ching has played both roles and stuff. And then I know you used to ask for one, but Brad has a great speaking voice. I don't know what the hell he's gonna say.
I can see that. Yeah.
But he has a very nice, like for your, especially for your audio listeners, he has like a great speaking voice.
He does have a nice podcast voice.
Yeah.
No, I definitely agree.
I just don't know what he would say, so.
No, I feel like there is something. I haven't talked to Brad that much, but Brad has a good kind of aura about him too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your experiences. We got to relive some great stories, some stories maybe I'm not proud of, but it's okay.
We only shared a portion of them.
We really did. Other portions we probably won't touch. I gotta say, there's one I knew that she knows exactly what I'm talking about that I cannot bring up, and I will never bring up on public. So we'll keep that to ourselves. Well, guys, if you really like this episode, please like, share, comment, subscribe, rate this podcast to keep the community going bigger impact. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all your support. And as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. I love you.